Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, and by Junk Be Gone, and by the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Junk Be Gone studios for today's episode of the Sports Source. We appreciate you being with us. Tennessee went on the road to Nashville yesterday, fell behind, looked for a while like it was going to be the typical basketball road result that you get in that sport, and then Dalton Knecht happened. Tennessee with the big comeback, 75-62 win at Vanderbilt yesterday. We'll break that down, and we've got a lot more to discuss. In fact, let's go ahead and show you what we're doing today on this show. As I mentioned, we will give you the takeaways from UT's win. We'll talk about how this is a different type of team for Rick Barnes and what that might mean come tournament time. Also, which is more important for the basketball program? A #1 seed in the NCAA tournament or an SEC title? And I know what you're thinking, SEC title. What are you, an idiot? Well, yeah, we'll debate it and I'll tell you why I'm an idiot. Bracketology and scouting report for South Carolina and Kentucky, we'll discuss that. Excitement over the Vols quarterback signees. They've got 3 straight guys who are all top 10 in their class. We'll talk about that. The 1994 quarterback room, was that the best in UT history? Because you got a couple of Hall of Famers, it's just one of them happens to play baseball. Stadium issues for baseball and football. We'll talk about the orange and white game, Lindsey Nelson Stadium, etc. And we'll get your take on a basketball versus football confidence question. This first segment of our show is brought to you by the Garza Law Firm. If you find yourself in need of an attorney, you're probably going to be feeling a bit stressed, pretty worried, to be honest with you. Marcos Garza and his team at the Garza Law Firm, they can help with some of those worries. You'll know you have a top-notch, proven local attorney working his tail off for you. Get some peace of mind. Call the Garza Law Firm. Learn more about them now. GarzaLaw.com. The Garza Law Firm. All right, let's welcome in the guys I call when I'm in trouble. Jimmy Himes right there. Former Vol assistant basketball coach Mark Pancratz right here. Will West right there. Gentlemen, thank you all for being here today. Tennessee gets the road win. They move to 15-4 overall, 5-1 in the SEC. They're still atop the conference. Dalton Knecht leads the way again with a 32-point performance. First SEC player in 14 years to have 5 straight games of at least 25 points. He is on fire. So, Mark Pancratz, as we always start, what's your big takeaway?
Well, Knecht is obviously the main guy and is scoring at all 3 levels. But to me, Vescovi giving you 12 points, knocked down some big shots, 4 for 4 from the free throw line when the team was struggling from the free throw line all night. And then Gainey steps up again and scores 10 points, which those we said it on Will's show this week of, to me, everyone's focusing on Adu, Knecht, and Ziegler, as should. But to me, the great teams are going to have that 4th and 5th guy. It could be different guys every night that show up, but those 4th and 5th guys make our offense really unstoppable. And last night it was Gainey stepping up and Vescovi.
And that's 2 games in a row where they both hit double figures. Yep. And it had been a while for either of them to hit double figures. So for both of them to be doing that 2 games in a row, you got to feel good that they're warming up. Jimmy, what's your big takeaway from that game?
And when Vanderbilt went to the zone, Tennessee hit some threes, so that didn't work. I like the fact that they had 4 different players that had at least 2 threes, so I thought that was important. Here's the other thing, too. It's hard on the road in the SEC. It's hard on the road, period. I saw this stat going in this year that if you're a top 10 team on the road against an unranked team, you win less than 40% of your games. So it started to look that way in the first half against Vanderbilt, which I thought played well in the first half. But I give Tennessee a lot of credit for bouncing back, ratcheting up the intensity, playing a really good second half, and then putting Vanderbilt away. I thought that said a lot because we've seen a lot of top 10 teams on the road against unranked opponents that haven't been able to do that.
We showed the number earlier, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, that in the SEC, going back to 2022, the home team wins 78% of the time. Now, that includes non-conference games too, but still, it's tough to go on the road against anybody, whether that's Mississippi State, who got you, or that's Vanderbilt, wherever. It's not easy to win on the road.
My big takeaway is that Dalton Knecht is Chris Jackson. That's what he is. And I think we're all showing our age when we say that Dalton Knecht is Chris Jackson. But I get a little concerned because we've seen him get a lot of help. He did get help from Vescovi. He did get help from Gainey. But I get a little concerned when I see a team where one guy's scoring 25 points or more. You get into tournament time. What happened with that Kevin Durant team with Texas? Went home early. What happened to Chris Jackson's teams all the time in the tournament? They went home early. Now, Steph Curry's teams, a little bit different with Davidson. They could make runs. This is a Tennessee team, I think, that's special enough to win the whole thing, especially given this isn't particularly a top-heavy world in college basketball we're in this season. I get concerned that they're a little too kind of waiting for Dalton Knecht to be the best player in college basketball every single night.
Well, and I know there are people out there saying, well, wait a second. For years, you've wanted somebody who could take over a game, who could go for 25 a night. Yeah, that's true. But I get what you're saying. We mentioned it with Isaiah Victor last week. Sometimes when you got a guy like that, there's a tendency for other players to, okay, let's watch Dalton do Dalton things. Does that concern you with this team at all? You mentioned, you started off talking about Vescovi and Gainey. You need whether it's them, you need somebody else to be that other option. Adu's been scoring more than anybody thought. He got 9 last night, but he'd been scoring more than anybody expected. Zakai Ziegler, I think, had a run where he came back stronger than he's ever been, even pre-injury. Does this team have enough guys that you think they're going to pick up the slack, or are you concerned, like Will, that you're one guy heavy?
Yeah, I think the last 2 weeks have given me a lot more confidence. I think prior to that, you saw Vescovi turning down some shots. Gainey wasn't making any shots. Josiah is still turning down some shots. Yeah. But if you can spread out, you saw Knecht when they went to that high ball screen last weekend. Ball screen comes, they sink on Adu, and he skips it across for a wide open shot. So he's making plays. But what Barnes has to do is continue to call ball screen offense, call sets, so it doesn't become just staying at the top of the key. We did make shots against zone like we did not against Mississippi State, and that's why we lost versus Mississippi State. The zone gets us stationary, and that's how you can defend a really good player. Is now you got all 5 guys staring at Knecht, and so we got to make sure that we're moving with our offense, regardless of what defense we face.
And I would much rather have an elite scorer like Knecht than not. And I get the deferring at times, but man, if he had 12 points in a row during that Vanderbilt game, if they don't have him, they may lose the game. So, and I do think, to Mark's point earlier about other players, Gainey, Vescovi, whatever, and Ziegler, as you point out, Adu, you have enough complementary players that are capable of scoring 10, 12, 15, 18 in a game. So I know there's reliance on Knecht. I get it. Yeah. But, boy, I'd sure rather have that than otherwise.
And Isaiah said this a couple of weeks ago, and I happen to agree with it. This is going to be a different Rick Barnes team in the tournament because you have this guy. Yes. Now, I see you're not wrong. I think both things can be right. You've got a guy, though, who can take over a game. If everything else fails, all right, give me the ball. And you've got somebody who can carry a team at this point. My concern, and I always mention this, you saw it with Zakai Ziegler last year. When you are this dependent on one guy, though, you lose 20. If he sprains an ankle in late February or, God forbid, worse, this team's in a world of hurt, I think. That's where you are. You know, it's hard to remove. And nobody's going to miss a guy. Nobody's going to not miss a guy who's scoring 25, 30 points a game. I mean, whoever, North Carolina, Duke, whatever. Better have this guy healthy and rolling a month from now.
But if you look at the tournament, though.
I'd put him in bubble wrap right
historically, Carmelo Anthony taking over a tournament. Danny Manning taking over a tournament. Now, again, we're aging ourselves a little bit showing these references, but there have been times that dudes just take over tournaments, and it could be Dalton Knecht's year to take over an NCAA tournament and be that guy.
I don't think you're aging yourself at all.
but here's the thing, and you're seeing it more across college basketball. Well, here's the thing about you're seeing with college basketball. How many teams now are scoring 80-plus points a game? And so we can talk all we want about Knecht getting 30. He can average 30. And our defense is going to hold people below their scoring average. Yeah. Even if we hold them to 70, we got to find 41 other points to be able to outscore teams. And so Knecht getting his is fine, but it's these other guys continuing having to step up and make shots and play within themselves.
Is there any concern for you guys that he and Jonas Adu have missed free throws? And I'm splitting hairs because I think this Tennessee team can be that elite. So you have to kind of split hairs when you're saying, can you win it all? Those two guys have missed a lot of free throws the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
I'm more worried about Adu than Knecht. Knecht's a 80-something% free throw shooter. I just think he had a bad game at the line.
I don't believe we've put in the graphics, so let's go ahead and just put up the Vol box score and the team stats. We need to do that whether I remember to call for it or not. Those things need to go in. Any other major takeaways from yesterday?
I think, and Jimmy and I were talking right before the show, You look at some of the teams that we've struggled against. Yes, there's the big guys against the dominant big guys, but the little undersized guards. Georgia had some undersized guards. Yesterday, Vanderbilt, small point guard, gave us trouble. I think he had 12, 14 points in the first half. So we've got to rectify some of that on the defensive end of how to keep – and I think it's why you see Tobey only getting 5 minutes yesterday. He's struggling in ball screen defense, and teams know as soon as Tobey gets in, they're putting him into ball screen defense. So we got to rectify some of that.
Shout out to Vescovy, 129 starts, the most of any Tennessee player. That was surprising to me.
When you've been here 8 years, eventually.
Well, what's funny is he didn't come in as a true freshman or anything. I mean, he transferred in as well, and he still wound up with 129. Heck of a run for him. And you look at the fact, he's a two-time All-SEC player. He's had such an up and down, interesting. I shouldn't say down. His downs haven't been really, really down. Led the SEC in three-point shooting one year. It's just been an interesting career for him. I don't know what his place in Vol history is going to be. I don't know how fans are going to remember him. Should be good, should be, happily, but is he going to be in a pantheon of guys who played more games than anybody else at UT history? I mean, is his name going to pop up there like somebody else? I just wonder.
It'll be one of those guys that people mention on the group chat. Hey, y'all remember Santiago Vescovy? That's who he'll be because he's done everything that's ever been asked of him, and his role has changed repeatedly during his time at Tennessee. But I don't know that he's going to be that superstar player that people mention, like Lofton or Houston or any of those guys.
But and also I just don't know that. Like Zakai Ziegler came in, and it was just his story, I suppose, and the house burning down and everything. But he became the fan favorite. You would think Vescovy has been here that long and been through enough changes and been on enough teams that he would get that kind of love, and I just don't know. There's a special connection between fans and players at some point, and I don't know if he has that, not through any fault of his own. I just have a lot of people I talk to who's like, well, Vescovy, and they don't mention him with enough regard, in my opinion. I think he's viewed a little bit like Josiah Jordan-James, and I think Vescovy's I think he's had a better career than Josiah Jordan-James.
And regarding Josiah, just on the coaching side of the four position, being able to defend offenses with a four position is vital. Josiah being able to switch on ball screens, read the defense, get out and guard a point guard, get in and battle on the post. I know he's not scoring. I know he's got to look to score, but he fixes a lot of things that makes this team a great, great defensive team.
But how many people sitting in the stands are paying admission to go in there and say, all right, I want to watch how this guy guards the four? But that's why. So you're right. 100%. You're 100% right. I'm just saying that's why he doesn't get that kind of love because he does things that coaches love, but fans are just not seeing.
Well, and allows Coach Barnes to be less frustrated with Knecht at times on the defensive end to keep him out there because Josiah's coming up there and cleaning up some of Knecht's missed.
Great point. All right, when we come back, how this team is different from a lot of Rick Barnes teams in the past, but will it make a difference come tournament time? We'll discuss that next. Come on back on the Sports Source.